Well, welcome to another video here at the World Board Gaming Championships, otherwise known as WBC, in beautiful Seven Springs, Pennsylvania. Today I've got an opportunity to sit down with a new designer, and I say new because I don't believe you have a published design.
Oh, well, Robin Hood.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that. We even talked about that. Yeah. I'm a moron. Robin Hood from Worthington.
Worthington, yes.
Which came out 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes,
something
right
like that.
The pandemic.
Yeah. My father-in-law has played that game with Alexander and I, and we had a good time with it. So definitely had a good time. But Damien Mastrangelo, did I get that right?
Yep.
All right.
Long Italian name.
Yeah, long Italian name. But this, over the week, I was able to sit down with you and play a couple of your games. Both were very good. And they were prototypes, right?
Yes.
One was more further along than the other.
Yes.
But maybe just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll kind of jump into maybe the Napoleonics game first, and kind of go from there. So a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, actually my game design started a number of years, right at the late 90s. I did some work for, it was Five Rings Publishing at the time, but they got bought by Wizards of the Coast. On a card game called Rage, the second edition. White Wolf had done a first edition, and we did the second edition. I brought on as a developer, so I did like the later things like that. And then I wound up selling a design to Wizards, which they didn't use, but they brought me on as a developer for a game. And then that was, but then the CCG boom sort of fell apart. So then it was a while, and I started to work on board games. And so I put together Robin Hood, which is a block game. And I was at Origins one year, and I pitched it to Grant from Columbia. And so he liked it. He gave me some really good suggestions. And I made some changes, and they took it, and they held it for a couple of years. But for them, they just didn't know what to do with it because it didn't fit their model, right? So they wound up giving it back to me, and I came here to the WBC a few years ago and pitched it to Worthington, and they liked it a lot, and so they bought it. And so that's how the start. Of the board game industry. Yes.
Nice. Well, and once again, I had the opportunity to play two of your designs, right? In progress designs.
Yes, one farther along than the other. Yes.
The first one I very much enjoyed. It was called 18 Card Napoleonics.
Yes.
And then the second one, which I had a very good time with, we just kind of pushed some things around to kind of get a feel for it. But that one doesn't have a name yet.
It doesn't.
But it's an American Revolution
block game.
Yep.
Strategic level.
Yep.
Yes.
And it also had some very cool mechanics. So let's focus on 18 Card Napoleonics. So what is that game about?
Okay. Well, that game is about. There was this big thing a few years ago about these challenges. Make a game with only 18 cards.
Right.
And they're all more Euro or that type of things. So I said, I'm going to use that 18 cards. I'm going to use it as just a basis. And I realized I couldn't do what I wanted without a board. So what I did was there's 18 cards in the game. There's a board and the pieces of that represent the units. The action is all driven by the cards.
And they are multi-use cards.
They are multi-use. Yes. You could discard them for different things to take different actions. The battles there'll be individual battles that you can fight, and so it's a pretty versatile system, in fact, because a couple of people have mentioned to me that, well, you could do this in Civil War, you could do this in Revolutionary or whatever. So it's an adaptable system, but it's simple, and it's meant to be played in anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, depending upon the situation.
I think our game went about half an hour.
Yes.
And went to the full conclusion, so we played the entire game. The one thing I really liked about it, the multi-use cards, the reason I brought up the multi-use aspect is you can discard them to do different actions.
Yes.
But you have to match up, isn't it matching up the symbols for the...
Yes, if you want to, for example, if you want to activate your infantry, you have to discard a card that has an infantry symbol on it.
Or if it's a double infantry unit, you have to have 2 cards. So you might have to throw 2 cards down. Yes. So that's one aspect, but then you also use those as resolution of fire combat.
Firepower, right.
Which I think is really good. How's that work?
Well, anytime you take an action, regardless of whether it's an attack, a move, a rally, whatever, you turn over the top card of the deck, and you're comparing the number to your target number, whether it's the attack value of your unit, or if a rally is the value of your commander. And if the number is equal to or greater than, it's a success.
Yep.
Also, there are national flags on each of the cards. So if you're playing French and you turn over a card that's a 3 and it has a French flag on it, it becomes a 4.
Right.
And it gives you a bonus of +1 to anything that you did. So for example, if you were attacking, it would do an extra hit. If you were rallying, you would be able to rally an extra step. Yes.
That actually never happened to me. The rally one never happened. I did get several multi-hits.
Multi-hits, right.
And then there's some other icons at the bottom, like an explosion that can give you another third hit.
A third hit, yes. So you can blow out a wing quickly if you're not. And so so you're matching the icons, and the cards. It adds an element of hand management, because if I'm playing against the French and I have the French 4 card,
you might want to hold on to that one
exactly,
for a while, not play it.
Because if I play it,
gets back in the deck,
right, and then it could come up and it could really hurt me.
And with 18 total cards, each side has 5 in their hand.
Right.
So then that means there are 8 cards in the resolution deck.
Right.
So if you look at your hand and you see a 4 and a 3 and maybe another 3, all of a sudden you start to ask yourself, well, I'm probably not going to succeed at most of what I do, because there's a distribution, almost a bell curve, right? But skewed maybe towards the lower end.
Yes.
A little zeros and ones. But I really like that element of the hand management, trying to understand how your hand impacted the deck. You're going, I'm pretty sure you're not going to hit because I've got all the good cards in my hand.
Right, and when you have you wind up with one of your own country's cards in your hand, you want to use that as fast as possible,
to get it back in the deck. Very cool little, I'm going to call it a gaming mechanic, because it's what the system is based on.
Right.
But it felt very much like a war game, because we were moving into position, attacking. There were certain benefits to holding certain areas of the column, or the what do you call the 3 divided?
The zones.
The zones.
Yeah.
I had a blast with it. We did the Battle of
Orstad.
Okay, and you said it had a couple of other battles.
I'm working on a couple of other battles. It'll probably, obviously, you got to do Waterloo.
Right.
Because it's the big one.
Yep.
But I was actually thinking about maybe doing Austerlitz and Waterloo, sort of the beginning of Napoleon
and the end of Napoleon.
So that may be...
okay. I really enjoyed that system, very much look forward to it. What do you think is going to happen to that over the, say, next 6 to 8 months? Has anyone expressed interest in the game? Other than me.
Yes, Worthington has.
Okay, cool.
And they're going to publish it.
Oh, great. So that's been determined.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, they do a good job on their production.
I think they do,
It'll come out looking great, but that is one you're going to want to keep an eye on. I think that's a really cool, innovative, and interesting design.
Oh, thank you, because that's...
So tell us a little bit about the American Revolutionary War strategic level block that has yet to be given a name.
Well, yeah, because it's still in an earlier...
A little rougher.
Yes. Well, that's a card-driven game, but it's a card-driven block game, but the cards are used a little differently. The blocks are your standard blocks that you have.
And they rotate 4 hits?
Yes.
So when they might start out at 3 strength, they get hit, they go to 2, which coincides with their health, right?
Their strength. Yeah, that's
Yep.
going to be how many dice they're going to
Yep.
roll.
Yep.
So in the game, what you're going to do when you play a card, all of the cards, you could play a card for an event. They do have some have events, but when you play a card to move or to attack, there's a series of actions you can do other than that. But I'll talk to you about because this is the more interesting part of the game. With the attacks is there'll be a general at the bottom listed, and it will list what north or south, the two areas, or it could be both, and there'll be a number there to the side. So what'll happen is you can play, for example, if I play Washington 4, it has a 4, he's in the north. I play that,
and then there are the theaters, right? The north and the south,
right?
And if you're in the south trying to activate, and the general's a northern general, you can't use it.
Yes. So, but if you do activate in the north with Washington, that means that you can move up to four blocks.
Yep.
And you can move them either from one area to others, or you can designate an area and move them all into that area.
Converge.
Right, and they have different movement rates, 1, 2, and 3. The artillery moves a little slower. The Indians and the
cavalry.
The cavalry move faster.
Yep.
So what that also does is that is your general if you get into a battle. So the general may have a special ability. When you go to the battle, you're going to take your pieces off the board and you're going to place them onto the battle board. Now the battle board goes from A to E.
With A being the best quality units who fire first. It's a fire priority.
Yes. E being the worst you can possibly be. So what you do is each one is rated. Each of your units are rated, so you'll place them on the proper place on their. But your general may alter that. For example, the general might say all your regulars get a shift to the right.
So they go, if they're Bs, they would become As.
Right.
Yep. I really liked that part of the battle mechanic. That was cool.
I thought that added a little bit more of uncertainty and yes. So
and also you really included a lot of the generals kind of some of their abilities in thematically with what was going on.
Right.
I thought that was very well done.
Because some generals are better than others.
Yep.
And so each of the columns will have a different thing. Most units start at single fire. So you're rolling to see if you get a 6.
Yep.
You're rolling for 6s. But as you go up, you get double fire.
Yep.
And then the best units can not only get double fire, but they can also force opponent units to retreat. Right. But on the other end of the scale, at the bottom, you have units that are firing single fire, and they may roll a 1 or even a 1 or 2, depending on how bad they are, and they have to retreat because they're poor units.
Yeah.
So you have to be. It's interesting. You have to be careful because you got to know what generals you got to play, and so you got to make sure that your group is going to benefit as much as possible from the general. Now, on the other side, you always have face down in each theater a general, and that's your defending general. And if you are attacked in that theater, you flip that over, and now sometimes it's a bluff. You had nobody, so you use what you do is use a generic general, which shifts all your guys 1 to the left, which is bad.
Got it.
But the general there will be your defender, and he may have a special ability that helps you on defense. So you don't know that. You might think, I'm going to go with, I know he has militia there, they're garbage, but you might turn over the general that gives all the militia a bonus.
Right.
In which case, there's that uncertainty as well.
Well, and I thought that was a very cool way to handle it because, particularly in those wars, right?
Right.
Now we have drones and reconnaissance and satellites.
Absolutely.
The battles went only as well as they really knew what was going on and who was there and how to attack them. And to me, that added that fog of war element in addition to the block fog of war. Overall, I enjoyed that game a lot. You had all the elements from the history from an abstracted naval aspect.
Yes.
The French track where you're rolling to see if they come in.
Yes.
And they can come in early if you roll well enough.
And you put your resources
into that. Because you have to build that track up.
Right. So you may, but if you're doing that, you're not doing something else.
Right. Not putting units on the board or moving and controlling areas. Ultimately, the game's about area control.
Control the states.
The states.
Yes.
So that you can score victory points. Ultimately at the end of the game. So you got to keep that in mind.
And there's a variable end to the game because you're rolling. You roll as you get to the end, the last few turns. So it could end a little early.
Sure.
So you have that uncertainty as well.
Yeah. Has anyone expressed interest in that design?
Worthington has.
Okay. They love block war games.
They do, and they do them very well.
Yeah.
And
their screen printed blocks are really nice.
They are real.
Like Louisburg and trying to think the other one but they do a really good job.
They do a great job on those blocks.
Yep.
Yes. So I love block games.
Yeah,
I know
do
you
too.
do too.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a little further that the more work needs to be done on that.
Sure.
But
they've expressed interest, so that's great.
And I want to say just as an aside, because I think this is Tom Dalglish, who's
with Columbia,
out of Columbia, I think is one of the most underrated designers ever.
And he's designed up 50 games, I feel like.
Yeah, and the idea of the blocks, just completely unique.
Yep.
Nobody had ever seen anything like that before. And
kind of a trailblazer in that regard.
Right, because we always hear about, the new mechanic, somebody came up with the, card driven or the deck building, but you never hear about Tom.
Right.
And
I will say why a little bit. I think a lot of wargamers don't like block war games.
That's true,
I don't exactly know why. Well, I do. They love to see the strength in the nice hex and counter rows so they can determine their best odds to attack.
Right.
To me, the beauty of block war games is you never know.
Right.
You just never know.
And in truth, in reality, you don't know.
No.
There's been many instances where an army has met another army thinking we've got the advantage.
And they didn't.
And they did not. Yeah.
I know in modern warfare it's a little harder nowadays with, once again, satellites and drones and, the technology that has been
now
invented,
we have more intelligence.
Yeah.
But
in those, 50, 100, 200, 300 years ago,
they had no idea.
Yeah, I love block war games, so I'm very glad that Worthington's expressed interest in that because I enjoyed that design as well.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, actually, both games I've had a great time with, so I really very much appreciated you showing those to me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Just in a couple of sentences, how many other designs do you maybe have where you're kind of just working on them?
Well, right now, I have a design. It was funny because the 18-card Napoleonics, Blue Panther expressed an interest in it as well, and they wanted it.
Got it.
But I had previously, I told them ahead of time. Yeah,
Worthington,
if Worthington wants it, they get it.
And that's honorable. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and Steve from
Understood.
Understood, nicest guy you'll meet. Great guy. But what I decided, last night I was going back because I said, I feel bad that that they wanted it, but they want that kind of a system where they could do, that sort of thing. So last night I just went home, back to the hotel. I'm sitting there, coming up, trying to brainstorm. I came up with an idea. I said, that's not going to work. I came up with another idea. That's not going to work. And then suddenly, wait, I had an idea. I think this will work. It's different, completely different.
Got it.
But I think it's going to work. And then I went through it as I normally do in my games, like, okay, but how's this going to work? Oh, like this. I always, when I design games when I'm doing the design process, I'm always looking at what could go wrong here. Like, is that going to incorporate well with this, or how I do this? But I had a bunch of ideas which I wrote down.
Okay. Cool.
I'm going to work on, as soon as I finish the work on
those two games.
Those two games.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump on that and offer
good.
it to. to that Blue Panther.
Yeah.
I also have some other. Mostly, I have ideas that are in various levels of. Like I've had an Israeli independence game, block game for a long time. I've been working on various ways. It's really, that's a really tough situation to simulate, but you know, that's something that I'm looking at in the future. Something that I'd like to do, even if it's not as blocks, but
something else.
Something else.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, once again, pleasure to have met you. Pleasure to have played a couple of your games. It's been fun to talk to you, so I do appreciate it. And yeah, keep your eye out for both of those games over, I don't know, next year and a half or so.
Worthington will do the Kickstarter. They'll do a Kickstarter on it.
I wish you luck, and I can tell you those games are very interesting. So at least according to me and my tastes. So.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your excellent work in the with the blogs and the videos.
Yeah, it's fun. Keeps me young.
That's always good.
Yeah. Well, Damien Mastrangelo, said that right?
Yes,
right?
You got it.
With us today here at WBC, and I've been Grant for the Player's Aid. All right, thank you.